The wind that morning was sharp enough to cut through wool. Snow clung to the hills of Greenbrier County, West Virginia, turning the world into a muted painting of whites and grays. In the hollow near Big Sewell Mountain, smoke curled lazily from the chimney of a small log house, the home of Zona Heaster Shue. Inside, the fire had burned low. The air was still, too still. An 11-year-old boy named Andy Jones trudged up the path, his boots crunching in the snow. He'd been sent by his mother to help Mrs. Shue with chores. He'd done it before, but today, something felt wrong. The front door was ajar. Andy called out, "Mrs. Shue?" No answer. He stepped inside. The cold air bit at his cheeks, and then he saw her. Zona lay at the foot of the narrow staircase, her body twisted, one arm bent awkwardly beneath her, her head turned at an unnatural angle. Her eyes were open, wide, glassy, and unblinking. Andy froze. The silence pressed in. Then, panic took over. He turned and ran. Andy burst into the blacksmith shop where Edward Stribling Trout Shue, Trout to everyone in town, was working. She's on the floor," Andy stammered. Trout didn't wait for details. He dropped his tools and sprinted up the snowy path to the house. Neighbors would later recall how he gathered Zona's body into his arms before anyone could stop him, cradling her head against his chest. He refused to let her go, even when Dr. George Knapp, the local physician and coroner, arrived. Dr. Knapp's examination was brief, too brief. Trout never once released his grip on Zona's head, making it impossible for the doctor to check her neck. Knapp declared the cause of death as everlasting faint, a poetic way of saying heart failure, and left it at that. Within hours, Trout was helping prepare her for burial. He dressed her in a high-collared gown and wrapped a large scarf around her neck, saying it had been her favorite. He placed a folded sheet on one side of her head, a rolled-up garment on the other, claiming it would help her rest easier. To most, it looked like the grief of a devoted husband. To one person, it looked like something else entirely. Mary Jane Heaster had never trusted Trout Shue. From the moment her daughter introduced him, she'd felt an unease she couldn't explain. He was charming, yes, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of temper just beneath the surface. When Zona's body was brought to her mother's home for the wake, Mary Jane noticed the scarf, the way Trout hovered at the head of the casket, never letting anyone get too close. She noticed the stiffness in Zona's neck, the unnatural way it seemed propped. Neighbors whispered condolences. Trout wept openly. But Mary Jane's grief was laced with suspicion. And then, the dreams began. On the first night, Mary Jane dreamed of Zona standing at the foot of her bed, pale and silent. On the second, Zona spoke. "Mama, he was cruel to me." On the third, she told the full story, how Trout had flown into a rage over dinner, accusing her of not preparing meat the way he liked. He had seized her by the neck and shaken her violently until her neck snapped. On the fourth night, Zona's spirit turned her head all the way around to prove it. Mary Jane woke each time drenched in sweat, her heart pounding. She told neighbors who shook their heads. Grief, they said, could make the mind play tricks. But Mary Jane was certain. Her daughter had been murdered. Mary Jane went to the local prosecutor, John Alfred Preston. She told him everything. The dreams, the accusations, the broken neck. Whether Preston believed in ghosts is unknown, but he listened. and he began to ask questions. Why had Dr. Knapp not performed a full examination? Why had Trout been so insistent on handling the body? Why the scarf, the folded sheet, the constant guarding of her head? Preston ordered the body exhumed. The morning of February 22, 1897, was bitterly cold. A small crowd gathered near the cemetery, their breath fogging in the air. Some came out of morbid curiosity, others out of loyalty to Mary Jane Heaster. Zona's coffin was lifted from the frozen ground and carried to the one-room schoolhouse nearby. Inside, 3 doctors, including Dr. Knapp, prepared for the grim task. Mary Jane stood outside, hands clasped tightly, eyes fixed on the door. She had told the prosecutor exactly what her daughter's ghost had said. Now she waited to see if the living would find what the dead had shown her. The examination lasted 3 hours. When the doctors emerged, their faces were pale. Zona's neck had been broken between the first and second vertebrae. The windpipe was crushed. The ligaments were torn. Finger marks were still visible on her throat. It was murder. Trout Shue was arrested the same day. He didn't protest. In fact, he seemed oddly calm, even smug. To the sheriff, he said, "They'll never prove I did it." But as he sat in the county jail, word spread. The story of the ghost witness began to circulate, whispered in kitchens and on front porches. Some scoffed. Others swore it was true. The trial opened in June 1897. The small courthouse was packed. Farmers, townsfolk, reporters. Everyone wanted to see the man accused of killing his wife and to hear whether a ghost would take the stand. The prosecution laid out the evidence: the broken neck, the crushed windpipe, Trout's strange behavior at the wake, his insistence on dressing the body himself. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Mary Jane Heaster took the stand. The defense tried to discredit her immediately. "Mrs. Heaster," the lawyer began, "is it true you claim to have spoken with your daughter's ghost?" Mary Jane didn't flinch. "Yes, sir. 4 nights in a row." She told the jury about the dreams, about how Zona had appeared, pale and sorrowful, and told her exactly how she died. She described the snapping of the neck, the rage in Trout's eyes, the way he had shaken her until life left her body. The courtroom was silent. Even the defense attorney seemed rattled. Whether the jury believed in ghosts or not, the physical evidence matched Mary Jane's account exactly. The jury deliberated for just over an hour. When they returned, the foreman spoke. Guilty of murder in the 1st degree. Trout Shue was sentenced to life in prison. He never confessed. In the weeks after the trial, Trout's past came to light. He had been married twice before. One wife divorced him for cruelty. The other died under mysterious circumstances. He had once told a fellow inmate that he planned to have 7 wives in his lifetime. Zona had been his 3rd. Trout died in prison in 1900, buried in an unmarked grave. Today, a state highway marker near the cemetery tells the story of Zona Heaster Shue, the only known case in U.S. history where a ghost's testimony helped convict a murderer. Whether you believe in spirits or not, the facts remain. A young woman died. Her mother dreamed of her. And justice, in some form, was served. On quiet nights in Greenbrier County, some say you can still see a figure in a high-collared gown standing at the edge of the road near the old Heaster home. She doesn't speak. She doesn't move. She only watches, as if making sure the truth is never forgotten.